All right. And then Dr. Hollenbeck, take it away.
All right. Well, let me try sharing my screen here and I don't know. Let's
I don't know, you have,
try
okay.
this and is that looking okay for
Yep.
the presentation?
Yeah, good.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, definitely thanks to everyone for coming. Certainly appreciate you taking time to listen, and I also appreciate Woosab and Slim and the library for inviting me to talk about this. It was kind of nice to actually go back and reflect on what I did last year because it was kind of a whirlwind year between doing it and then teaching the class, and so to kind of reflect back on it has been helpful. So let me tell you a little bit about myself, if I can get the thing to advance. Let's see. All right. So just to let you know a little bit about myself, I got all my college degrees in some sort of mathematics or applied mathematics at the University of Missouri, and then got a job here at ESU and have been here ever since. And one of the first assignments I got when I took the job was they said, well, we want you to teach math modeling. And I was like, okay, great, but I have no idea what that is. I never had taken that class. I had never even heard of it really. So I went to the library there at Mizzou and tried to look up a little bit about math modeling. But it's been a fun class. You can see the picture here. We 3D printed tubes to launch marbles one year, and then they just for fun tried to kind of combine those together. So I like the hands-on aspect of math modeling, the opportunity to do various projects, and so as you can see, I've tried to use projects in other classes, and so I have always felt that was interesting for me. Hopefully, it makes me a better teacher. Hopefully, it makes them better learners and understand things well. But it also brings some challenges. And so the but one of the positives of it is because it is an opportunity for some unique experiences. Students have been able to make presentations at conferences based on what we did in the class, and I've been able to share a few of the things I've done over the years as well. So, what is the in class and what did I have? So you can see there's a picture of all my notes that I've compiled over the last 20 years. I've taught the class not every year, but quite a few falls and a few kind of summer graduate level variations of it. And as you can tell, I'm not very good at organizing it. It's just a big pile of notes as I added to the pile. And I looked on my computer, and I think I've got about 1,000 electronic files from all these courses. I had a colleague who was going to teach it a couple of years ago, and so I told her, "Well, I'm glad to share my stuff with you, but unfortunately, it's not organized very coherently." And part of that's because I'm always trying to do new projects. Not everything is new, but try to tweak things a little bit so students aren't tempted to maybe just redo what their classmates did the year before. And sometimes I just have a new idea that I think, I'm kind of curious what that would look like. So I had a big mess basically that I really wanted to clean up, and so that's what was one thing that motivated this project. The other thing that motivated was the textbook that I did use for a lot of those years is this one, First Course in Mathematical Modeling. Um, the list price is $376. Hopefully, no one actually pays that. There's cheaper ways of getting it, but it is traditionally an expensive book unless you can find a pretty cheap used one or something. I thought it was great for me as a new instructor. I learned, like I said, I didn't know much about it. I feel like it taught me a lot. And but one downside of math modeling compared to your typical math class is you can't just generate 30 homework questions based on one idea. If you know the quadratic formula as homework problem, I can quickly just throw a bunch of random numbers into quadratic equations, and students can crank through those as much as they want. But with modeling, each problem is potentially going to be different. And so, no matter what textbook you have, it's going to be hard to have a really comprehensive collection of activities, projects, and problem sets. The other challenge is that for ESU, we are gearing this class for future high school and middle school math teachers. So math modeling, of course, is applied mathematics is a important subject that lots of people do a lot with, but they're usually operations researchers or statisticians or data scientists or lots of various areas, and so they have all these different tools out there that are probably a little too advanced for what we're going to maybe teach a sophomore in high school somewhere, right? So, especially since they won't have a lot of the background information. So it makes it an interesting class, what you can do with some basic, more basic math, but it also meant there aren't a lot of options for a book. So here was my goal when I was thinking about what I wanted to do if I was going to do something is so yeah, certainly I wanted to create a book which would one give me an excuse to actually organize my stuff. That was a priority. I wanted the book to reflect what I thought was important for the class, what our audience was at ESU, what our program thought was important for the course. Free is always good, right? So if they don't have to pay 375 bucks, that's definitely a plus. I also just wanted a place to just store all this stuff that I've been putting together, whether it was for math modeling or Calc 2 or whatever class that I could go back to and find it a little bit more easily. Um, and I also want it to be flexible. So if someone else wants to teach this class, either here at ESU or maybe they want to teach a calculus class or maybe somewhere at a different location, I wanted the book to be set up in a way that they could pick and choose what they wanted to use. If they just wanted to use a section of it or a couple of sections or a couple of projects, any of those would be possible if it was flexible enough. Another thought that crossed my mind was the best part of modeling, I think, is the in-class activities that you can potentially do, hands-on sort of things. But those take a whole lot of time, and it's really hard to do that and cover everything else. But if you had some pre-recorded videos that would introduce the basics so they could focus on the implementation, then that might be helpful. So to kind of supplement the book, I was hoping I'd have time to make some videos to go along with it. Uh, the other thing is it's nice to have an option for growing the book, growing the projects. And so I was also hoping to collaborate with others and get some new ideas of, yeah, what else could go into this book and also just give our students a chance to maybe see some sort of project that one wasn't my idea, but maybe didn't even have anything to do with Emporia or Kansas. So that was another thing I wanted to do. So the first step was actually a lot of kind of prior work that was getting a sabbatical. So I applied for a sabbatical. I applied for a Craig grant. So that would give me basically 8 months in 2024 to focus on this. And fortunately, I did get both of those accepted. I also put out feelers for, yeah, some of that future collaboration. I, send out flyers for teachers here in Kansas, talked to our international office, and also got selected to be on the Fulbright specialist roster. And so far, the international office has been the most fruitful of those three things. I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. And I had a firm deadline. I was supposed to teach this class in the fall, and so 8 months was really all I had. So, which for me, maybe a bit of a procrastinator, having a firm deadline was probably a good thing. So, to give you an idea of kind of what this looked like for me, January consisted of just a lot of brainstorming, decision making. Even just simple things like, how am I going to type this? Am I going to use Word? Am I going to use LaTeX or pretext? If you're not familiar in mathematics, we often use LaTeX or Tech to type mathematical equations. It works great for that. It's not so great for accessibility, like PDF readers, as I've learned. And it's also not so great for adaptability if maybe a high school math teacher wants to use some part of the book and they're not comfortable with LaTeX. So I was a little concerned about that. Pretext is kind of an up and coming resource for creating mathematical textbooks and maybe others as well. It's an online environment that can be interactive with the students. When you look at what it can do, it looks pretty cool. It also looked like a lot of work, and I didn't have a lot of time to kind of do everything that I wanted to do. And so something that would be easy for me and the teachers and not too much of a learning curve uh, made me go ahead and go with Word, especially with all the Excel charts and diagrams I would be using. Word actually worked pretty well. Um, and in modeling class, we don't do quite as much of the heavy duty mathematical equations. If I was making an advanced calculus textbook, I would probably not use Word. But um, once I had that figured out, needed a general outline of the book, and I had to think about that. You can see my whiteboard there with some brainstorming of that. Even just how was I going to organize the section? What would be the font size and font colors and how do I name figure? All these little things that if you're just teaching a class with a book, you don't have to make all those decisions. So there's a lot of little things like that. Um, and then I did want it to be, of course, freely available. But as I started learning more about licenses and Creative Commons, there's a whole lot of different options you actually have for that. I have a little link there if someone's curious. I found this when I was researching pretext. They had a lot of good information that helped me navigate that. And so I decided to go with this type of license, which basically, as long as people give credit and keep the licensing the same, they can do use it however they want. So, by the way, if anyone ever has questions, feel free to jump in, or I guess we can do them at the end too. But feel free to stop me if I'm going too fast on something. Still January, still trying to figure out what this is going to look like. I decided to go with kind of a toolbox metaphor because I wanted a modular feel for the book. So I wanted the book to be where people could pick and choose sections. So a toolkit way of thinking about it in my own head helped. The modeling process is you kind of need the whole package there, I suppose. But mathematical tools, right? You can pick and choose those, and technological tools, you can pick and choose those. So basically, a three chapters was going to be the meat of the book. And generally speaking, I was wanting to equate one section with a tool. And when I was writing this book, I thought about it in basically three layers. So I kind of went through this book three times. The first pass was just writing the text, my notes basically. The second pass was writing all the homework, and then the third pass was creating videos for each section. Still just trying to get started before I really jump into things too much. Some of the logistical details were important for me, I think. My office here in Science Hall is right on the way to the copier, so there's always people going by, which is great if you want to catch up with folks. It's a great office. Not so great if you need to actually focus for more than 15 minutes. So we had an empty office down in our math lab that I took that over. It also allowed me to just spread out all my stuff. I pretty much unloaded everything on that whole office, so that was really useful. Moved my operation down there, so I didn't have to go back and forth a lot. Um, yeah, it gave me space to organize, and I really did use all the counter space, which was helpful. And the other thing that I realize is that when you're creating your own book, you actually have a whole lot more flexibility and options of how do you really want to teach this class. So I don't necessarily have to restrict myself to the outline that the previous book used. And I certainly didn't want to just like copy and paste what the previous book had used either. So I felt like I really need to get a sense of, okay, in terms of the modeling process, especially and presenting it, what's kind of the current expertise out there? There's this great report, the game report. It's free online, and so part of my time was just reading through that and some other things, just to kind of get a bigger picture beyond what I had done in the past, so I could put together something that I think would be my own stamp on how math modeling can go, because it's not like um, it's not like the Pythagorean theorem, right? We all agree what the Pythagorean theorem is, but what the modeling process exactly looks like can be a little bit different. The previous book talked about how it's a cyclical process, and then this report said, well, it's kind of cyclical, but it isn't really. And so anyway, that was part of my process as well. And then the other thing that was helpful was to just get a table of contents. Say, all right, here's my goal. Um, if I can get through all these sections, I'll be happy. If I can get through all of these extra sections, I'll be even happier. And I at least got to the happy stage. I didn't get to the extra happy stage. I'll say that, but it's all right. So in January, early February, I was able to start writing. Uh, like I said, chapter one, you can see the chalkboard there is me trying to wrap my mind around chapter one a little bit. That was more new material, new homework, so that took more time. And then as I got into the other two chapters, I was able to do a little more copy and pasting of my notes. One thing that was a big part of this process was just sorting through all my materials, tossing redundant stuff, tossing stuff that wasn't helpful, and yeah, just figuring out, okay, what's going to be my priorities for including in the book. I got a chance to take a little bit of a uh, trip in March through the international office. They have a connection with CPK. I saw Cynthia on here earlier. She knows about CPK. They are an organization that connects Paraguay with institutions here in Kansas. So it's perfect for what I wanted to do. And so I visited there for a couple of weeks. It gave me a chance to actually use some of what I've been doing. So, for instance, I taught a lesson at a bilingual school there in Asuncion, the capital. So I got a chance to kind of see, okay, I teach college students, but my students are going to be teaching high schoolers and middle schoolers. How does how does one of my ideas that I show them in class translate to that level? So that was a good exercise for me, I think. You can also see I pre-recorded some videos there with some help down there, which again gave me a chance to kind of get a feel for what that would be like. So, got to meet with a variety of folks as well to say, hey, here's this project I'm working on. If you're interested in more collaboration, like to, talk more. And so I think it really laid some groundwork that just to see, yeah, who's really interested and go from there. And I have been able to have some follow-up conversations since then. So we'll see where that leads. But at least for in the moment, it did give me a chance to kind of see how things were going as I put into action what I had been working on. So next couple of months was a lot of writing. One thing that I think was helpful was I did take a break. My wife and I took an advantage to go on vacation for a couple of weeks. Of course, I'm never really on vacation, right? Because I'm always looking for more interesting math. So in a museum, I found this interesting hourglass. I thought that could be a cool modeling project, or analyzing stairways, and that we'd actually done before. But I this was a nice visual for, yeah, what's the optimal staircase. So, but it was also good to get away from writing because as a math professor, I try to avoid writing when I can. So my wife's the journalist, so she does the writing, but unfortunately couldn't help me here. So got through the book, got to the summer. This is when I was able to start recording videos. You can see my little studio there in that extra office. I use Panopto. That's what we have here at ESU. That seemed to work fine. Also use a document camera, which has worked well for, again, what I wanted to do. And this would give the content for the students so that if they did want to watch a video in advance or read the section notes, basically I told them this fall, you can watch the video, you can read the notes, or you can do both, and that would help them get a head start on our next class period. I tried to keep the videos not super short or super long, and most sections are probably a couple of videos. Some have a few more, depending on the topic. So, um, the final step was, it was August. So now I'm running out of time. I need to figure out how am I actually going to get this in the hands of folks. So I made a cover, so you can see what the cover looks like there. The logo there just kind of has to do with how I talk about modeling in chapter one. But for all those videos, I wanted again it to be as accessible as possible. So I put it on YouTube, so it would so anyone could, they wouldn't have to be like an ESU student to check it out. I will say it did take a long time to go through the recording and then re-record because I didn't like what I did or I messed up, and then to do the closed captioning and go through and actually edit the closed captioning. So, the default's not bad, but to make it actually fit what I wanted and to delete some of the annoying things in there that I should have glossed over. Yeah, so that did take a lot of time. I also wanted a website to make things available, the PDFs and the files and so forth. And so I don't know anything about webs sites or design or anything like that. I also am cheap, so I didn't want to spend a lot of money on this. But Hostinger was what I went with. It allowed me to give full control over everything that I wanted to do with it. Some expense. I went ahead and bought the 4-year plan. We'll see. Other than paying for the domain every year, that covers everything for 4 years. We'll see where I'm at in 4 years. It was a pretty smooth system. I liked it. If you're comfortable with drag and drop and editing things, I thought it worked pretty well. And it allowed me to do more than just a PDF. So I certainly could have made a PDF and just emailed that to my students, but it gave me a chance to do a little bit more. Um, so I will just briefly give you a little sense of what it looks like here. Let's see if, all right, can everyone see the website now? Is that okay? So, okay, good. So as you can see, I have a couple of different things here. I wanted to be able to, yeah, have some other features in the websites, and so that's that. But the textbook is right here, and so you can see there's a little bit of an introduction, and then here's the three main chapters, and then an appendix. And so if you want to see like one of the toolkits, I have it split up by section. You can, click on this and get the PDF version of or maybe it's even a Word version. I may have left it Word so people can edit it because I am fine with people editing it. Here's a couple of videos from the YouTube channel that go with it. And then here's the next section. And it has more videos. It takes a while for all the thumbnails to load. And in some cases, there might be some files that go with the section or the video, and so you can see. Yeah, I think this one. Yeah, this one has some Excel files. So that is so that gives you a little feel um, for the websites. And if you get to the end of chapter 2, then you can move on to chapter 3 and so forth. So let me go back to the other thing I wanted to do was to make a single PDF. So if I did want to just print it or send that to someone, and so the downside of having the modular, each section is its own Word file for the website was, and then I actually had to copy and paste all those together to make one jumbo Word file, which and so that's kind of what the first edition, so to speak, is all right, that's locked in, is this PDF. And so I have, so that's the physical one. I asked my students this fall, it's like, do you want the electronic version, or do you want to print off an actual one that you use? And I believe it was all but one of them picked the paper version of it, which I thought was interesting. So, um, but it was still free because it was just not too much. Um, just to kind of wrap up some thoughts, some issues, and some recommendations. The some things are definitely lacking with how I did this. Right, doing your own textbook. Certainly, I didn't have anyone who's giving me a general math, editing review of, hey, does this make sense? Hey, did I make mistakes? So I'm, certainly missing that. No one's checking it for all the typos. I did give my students opportunities. Hey, if you find any mistakes, please add that to the list, little shared Google Doc, and help me with that. It'd be nice to have a solutions manual. That's again something that, regular textbook. I think maybe they hire a student to throw together. I don't know, but I don't have that yet. And and then of course I didn't get to every section on my dream wish list. I got all the necessary ones, but if I did want to add some sections in the future, then of course that's going to be just I have to squeeze that in among the other things. But I'm pleased with what I did get through. I was able to use it this fall. Was able to get through. Yeah, it's the only textbook where I actually got through all the sections because I only put the sections in that I wanted to teach. So that was nice. So recommendations. This one isn't so helpful, but I really wish I'd been better organized in the past. So if anyone's watching this and they're younger, they're thinking about doing this down the road and they're younger, yeah, if you're more organized than me, you'll be better off. Um, I do think it was vital to have a decent block of time and the firm deadline. I've kind of had this idea in my mind for a while. It'd be nice to have a way of compiling things into a coherent place, but it just never got done until I prioritized it. Another thing that was helpful for me was that table of contents was basically my schedule. And I can't remember what it works out to, maybe like 23, 24 sections. And as you recall, okay, I had 3 passes through that. So that was basically 72 sections I needed to do something with. And in my head, I was thinking, all right, if I could average one a day, right? If you take out when I'm out of town and weekends and whatever else conflicts. If I could average one a day, where does that put me in my schedule? And then it was good as we marched along through the school year. I could see, okay, I'm either ahead of schedule or I'm behind the schedule, and sometimes I could make up ground or not. So, and sometimes like, okay, I'm definitely behind schedule. I'm not going to get those last couple of sections. So. Uh, anyway, that gives you a quick overview. Thanks for listening.
That's great. But I kind of, envy your persistence and then planning, ahead. The writing itself took, 8 months. But before that, you said that you had the ideas kind of for a while. I don't know how long, like 2 years, 3 years, or 10 years.
It'd been a while. I remember I even talked to one of our students who was a computer science math double major, and and I was like, hey, I have this idea that'd be cool to have like a website where, all these projects could be there and could be sorted and everything. And we talked a little bit, and had a little bit of money where maybe I could pay him, but there's just too many logistical problems, and that was probably 10 years ago. So yeah, it's been rolling in my head for a while.
Yeah, so many of us have ideas, the big ideas or small ideas, but it's kind of trigger, that point is kind of critical, you know. Wow. And then Cynthia kind of, in the chat says, it's amazing you got so much done in that amount of time. We know 8 months is not enough. So how do you manage that? You said
So
one at a time, one on a day, but it's not that easy.
yeah, so a couple of things. One was I didn't try to do it from home. I'm sure if I tried to do this from home with the distractions and the pantry and everything, that wouldn't have been conducive. And the other thing that helped was I did have once I kind of got my stuff organized, I could say, all right, here's what I've done. And I kind of know how I teach it. I've taught the class enough that it's like, all right, I can do a lot of copying and pasting and typing of my notes and things. It was, so it was helpful to have oh, I already have this Excel file with the data and so forth, so I can just import that and manipulate it. So it definitely helped having a place to focus and also having done it enough that I kind of had in my head what I thought I wanted to do once I got over the kind of logistical details at the beginning.
Any other questions, comments from audience here?
Myra, I see Myra has her hand up.
Hey, um, Brian, thank you so much. This is a very nice presentation, and I'm delighted to get to speak to you about this because I have been very interested in your work, and I'm going to tell you real quickly one reason that is. But first of all, congratulations on such a lovely job. I've looked at clicked through the book, and I saw firsthand what a nice job that you did. Whenever you talk about it, you don't give yourself enough credit for having really put together a great resource. At least that's my view of it. And
Thank you.
I wonder if you remember that a few years ago, Dr. Ken Thompson and I worked on a project together. We had some funding to create a certificate for in-service and pre-service teachers. That was our audience. And we called the certificate Information Technology and Scientific Literacy, but it really was built around a STEM model. So we intended to include science, technology, engineering, and math. And I would say that it was the math part of it that we might have worked the hardest to include. And that was for a variety of reasons. It didn't help that neither of us were math teachers, but we did have the wherewithal to collaborate with people who had expertise that we didn't have. And our goal was to really do a good job of bringing librarians and all those content area teachers together in the same classroom. We taught them all in the same classroom. We would have been, to have this resource that you've created would have been gold. It really would have been. And a lot of what you've included, we tried to include, because we were teaching this scientific model and tried to incorporate, methods that involved math and other things. So I just really admire the work that you've done. And I'm guessing that I think you said that your primary audience is future teachers. Was that right?
Here at ESU, although we're starting to get more non-future teachers in the class, but yeah, traditionally that's been the audience.
Yeah. Well, it would be a great resource because for one thing, it's not like an ebook that they don't any longer have access to when they're not a student. They're going to be able to continuously use it from your website and benefit from it as you update it and move along. So I don't mean to take up all the time, and I was a little bit late, and that certainly wasn't out of any disrespect for this. I've been looking forward to hearing you speak about it, and so I'm glad I could be here today.
Well, thanks a lot, Myra.
Yeah, by the way, Dr. Dow and Dr. Hovius actually co-authored a textbook for the LIS. It was last year, Myra.
It's dated 2024. Yeah.
Philippine, yeah. So, but it's kind of different format. It's actually kind of format book, and then I think you can print out whole book, I think. So one single file, and then the preservation, or I mean you have in the Brian, you have in a website, but how do you preserve your whole thing, just in case, servers can crash, or kind of add, second copy, or all those, preservation wise. You mentioned about update kind of, challenge, but can you describe what you thought about the preservation part?
Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, so hopefully, as we've noticed here at ESU, I don't know about if others, but I've taught a lot of classes over the years that were hybrid, that I recorded videos, and then when we got rid of Kaltura, then all those videos either disappeared, or we had to migrate them, and some of them I hadn't. They had already vanished before I even got to the migrating stage. So what I did was well, that was one reason to put them on YouTube. Not that that's guaranteed either, but I also download them onto a external hard drive, so the videos are there, and then the Word files and all the kind of supplementary spreadsheets and so forth are on my OneDrive and on that external hard drive as well. Although honestly, the opposite problem also worries me is that when you start having multiple copies of something, do I edit one and then forget to edit the other, or copy it? So I'm also a little bit worried about having multiple versions. So hopefully I can keep track of that, but we'll see how that goes in the future. So,
Michael.
Hello there. Had to unmute. Brian, I really enjoyed your presentation. And I apologize if you answered these questions at the very beginning, but I just wanted to ask two, and I'll just ask them both up front, and you can do what you will with them. My first question is, did you get any kind of institutional support, any grant funding or anything like that? It sounds like you were able to identify an office to turn into a studio, which was awesome. Any other institutional support for this project? And my second question is, was it fun?
So the first question, definitely applied for a sabbatical for the spring, and I got that, and I applied for a Craig grant, which I don't know how many non-ESU folks are here, but we have a Craig's grant system that supports faculty if they do want to either supplement their teaching with some open resources, or create a brand new textbook or something in between. And so I did get one of those that I feel like kind of paid for my summer efforts. So yeah, I definitely couldn't have done it without that support. Fun. Like I say, I'm a mathematician, so writing is not normally high on my list of fun things to do. Maybe satisfying is the word. Is that when it was done, that was satisfying to say, okay, I have something. It kind of turned out, for more or less turned out the way I was hoping. And so so yeah, that was satisfying. And there is something to be said for, I had 8 months where I didn't have to do any grading or any committees for the most part. So that had some benefits too. So.
Great. And Melissa Emo is our OER librarian at ESU, and she just kind of put the link about the Craig grant. I think already done for this year, right, Melissa? The cycle wise.
Our next cycle starts in October, but we do have our new recipients that were chosen at the end of this last year.
Yeah. So if you are interested in be prepared ahead. So I think this is good support from the ESU. And it's part of the funding is from the actual students. All those OER designated classes, if they take classes, they put like a $5 or something like that, and then those, small fees adds up for, think up to $5,000 of a grant per, authors here. If you write, to my understanding, if you write kind of brand new textbook, whole thing, and then you would get $5,000. So, yep. Well, this is a wonderful occasion. Any other comments? Any comments on, from Melissa?
I just really appreciate everyone coming to listen. So thanks a lot for coming.
Right. This is wonderful. Thank you so much, Brian. Okay, bye.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep, you're welcome. Bye.